Hello, Sushi crew. Welcome to True Crime Sushi. My name is Amy Fallon, and we're live. It's been a crazy day, you guys. It's my mom's birthday, so I spent the day doing that, and I just kind of wrote in the chat like, hey, if you guys can wish her happy birthday. Her name is Nancy, and that would be so awesome. Make me happy, You want to make Miss Sushi happy? I'm being silly. Oh my gosh. So anyway, my hair looks a little crazy, but let's just get the housekeeping out of the way. Hair looks a little crazy. I got to stop touching it. So it is pulled back. I got a headband from a very nice person that sent it to me. I believe she's going to start an Etsy store. It's super cool because it doesn't slide back off your head. And I believe it's called the Salted Ocelot, which is like, what a fun name. So I heard she's going to start an Etsy store. So when she does, I'll let you know. And, it's a basic, but I like it. Anyway, let's get down to brass tacks here. So tonight, I want to talk to you about an article that I pulled from the Associated Press. I read it this morning before I started about my day, and I was kind of blown away. And I kind of told you guys before this, I didn't know, when I'd be able to do lives or be able to like really commit to a normal set schedule and that I was working on it. That was a priority. But there would be times when I would feel the need to do this. And this is one of those times. I am going to read you the article. If you didn't read it on my community page, I feel like it's really, really important. I don't feel like I can do a good job of summarizing it because you have to hear it or read it in its true form. So I hope that makes sense. Normally, I don't want to make it a practice of just sitting on here and reading to you. It's different when we're doing documents, but when we're talking about a piece like this, you need to have that as context to go on to the rest. So what I'm going to do first is pull up that article and start reading to you, and then we'll go from there. And real quick, I want to say hi to everybody here. Sushi crew, yay, thank you. I saw Breaking Crime with Big E. I see Petunia. Tina Reddington, hey. Hi, Julian Phillips. Good girl. True Crime Unveiled. TCU. Thank you for wishing my mama a happy birthday. Pop It, Mop It, love your name. Kathy Lynch, good to see you. You and me both, sister. Tracy L. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Empress Takalata Kaka. She knows I don't like to say her name. Just teasing. I think I'm like a little batty, but then when it comes to certain words, I just don't like saying them. And one of them is the F word, like that F-A-R-T word. Cannot stand it. So, let's see. Oh, you guys are silly. Bum that he has to start brushing his teeth after COVID. Hey, Marilyn Landis, Penguin. Penguin, I'm late tonight because I was at my mom's. It was her birthday. So she lives on the coast, and I drove back and I had some stuff to do. And I needed to prep. I couldn't prep until I got home. So I got home like around 8-ish, something like that. Hey, Shimpy, Candy Williams. And One Man's Trash, Mom in the Shoe, love that name. Go up to the top, just make sure I didn't miss anybody. Best Playlist, Crocheting, Bammy. Let's see. I think I got everyone. Lisa, Lulu. If I missed you, I'm sorry. Petunia, I'm trying to find a way to do this to say hi without it being hard to listen to on a replay. Because I want to acknowledge you, but I know when I'm listening to replay, like sometimes it's just like, blah. So, hey, St. Elmo's Fire, love the name. Love the name. I loved that movie. I wanted to be, I think I was too young when I saw that movie. I didn't really understand, but I love the way Demi Moore dressed in that movie. That was like my thing. And the Suzuki Samurai. Meep, meep, hi. Love that too. All right. So let's get down to business. Why we're all here. I'm going to try to keep this as concise as possible because I am kind of running this on my own, and not kind of, I am, and all that goodness. There are going to be times when I'm not going to be able to see the chat. So I'm going to step away onto another little dimension here and go over this article with you, and then move on to bigger and better things. So here we go. All right. So this was published August 4th by Michael Resendez, and I have already reached out to him because I am fascinated. The title of the article is 7 Years of Sex Abuse, How Mormon Officials Let It Happen. Bisbee, Arizona. MJ was a tiny black-haired girl just 5 years old when her father admitted to his bishop that he was sexually abusing her. The father, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and an admitted pornography addict, was in counseling with his bishop when he revealed the abuse. The bishop, who is also a family physician, keep that in mind, followed church policy and called what church officials have dubbed the helpline for guidance. But the call offered little help for MJ. Lawyers for the church, widely known as the Mormon Church, who staffed the helpline around the clock, told Bishop John Herod not to call police or child welfare officials. Instead, he kept the abuse secret. They said, "You absolutely can do nothing," Herod said in a recorded interview with law enforcement. Herod continued to counsel MJ's father, Paul Douglas Adams, for another year and brought in Adams' wife, Lisa Adams, in hopes that she would do something to protect the children. She didn't. Herod later told a second bishop, who also kept the matter secret after consulting with church officials who maintained that the bishops were excused from reporting the abuse to police under the state's so-called clergy penitent privilege. Adams continued raping MJ for as many as 7 more years into her adolescence and also abused her infant sister who was born during that time. He frequently recorded the abuse on video and posted the video on the internet. Adams was finally arrested by Homeland Security agents in 2017 with no help from the church after law enforcement officials in New Zealand discovered one of the videos. He died by suicide in custody before he could stand trial. The Associated Press has obtained nearly 12,000 pages of sealed records from an unrelated child sex abuse lawsuit against the Mormon Church in West Virginia. The documents offer the most detailed and comprehensive look yet at the so-called helpline Herod called. Families of survivors who filed the lawsuit said they show it's part of a system that could easily be misused by church leaders to divert abuse accusations away from law enforcement and instead to church attorneys who may bury the problem, leaving the victims in harm's way. The helpline has been criticized by abuse victims and their attorneys for being inadequate to quickly stop abuse and protect victims. Yet the Utah-based Faith has stuck by the system despite the criticism and increasing scrutiny from attorneys and prosecutors, including those in the Adams case. "I just think that the Mormon Church really sucks, seriously sucks," said MJ, who is now 16, during an interview with the AP. "They are just the worst type of people from what I've experienced and what other people have also experienced." MJ and her adoptive mother asked the AP to use only her initials, in part because videos of her abuse posted by her father are still circulating on the internet. The AP does not publish the names of sexual abuse survivors without their consent. William Meldon, an Arizona attorney representing the bishops and the church in a lawsuit filed by 3 of the Adams' 6 children, told the AP last month that the bishops were not required to report the abuse. "These bishops did nothing wrong. They didn't violate the law, and therefore they can't be held liable," he said. Meldon referred to the suit as a money grab. In his AP interview, Meldon also insisted Herod did not know that Adams was continuing to sexually assault his daughter after learning the abuse in a single counseling session. But in the recorded interview with the agent obtained by the AP, Herod said he asked Lisa Adams in multiple sessions if the abuse was ongoing and asked her, "What are we going to do to stop it?" "At least for a period of time, I assumed they had stopped things, but then I never asked if they picked up again." The Adams family lived on a lonely dirt road about 8 miles from the center of Bisbee, an old copper mining town in southern Arizona known today for its antique shops and laid-back attitude. Far from prying eyes, the Adams home, a 3-bedroom, open-concept affair surrounded by desert, was often littered with piles of clothing and containers of lubricant Adams used to sexually abuse his children, according to legal documents reviewed by the AP. Paul's wife, Lisa, assumed most of the child-rearing responsibilities, including getting their 6 children off to school and chauffeuring them to church and religious instruction on Sundays. Paul, who worked for the U.S. Border Patrol, spent most of his time online looking at porn, often with his children watching or wandering the house naked or in nothing but his underwear. He had a short fuse and would frequently throw things, yell at his wife, and beat his kids. He just had this explosive personality, said Shanice Moore, a Border Patrol agent and a Mormon who worked with Paul and described herself as Lisa's best friend. He had a horrible temper. Paul was more relaxed while coaxing his older daughter to hold a smartphone camera and record him while he sexually abused her. He also seemed to revel in the abuse in online chat rooms, where he once bragged that he had the perfect lifestyle because he could have sex with his daughters whenever he pleased, while the wife knew and doesn't care. He would later tell investigators the abuse was a compulsion he couldn't stop. I got into something too deep that I just couldn't pull myself out of, he said. I'm not trying to say the devil made me do it. The Adams family was deeply involved in the Mormon community, and on Sundays they attended services in Bisbee. So Adams turned to his church and to Bishop Herod when he sought help and revealed the abuse of MJ. Herod later told Homeland Security agent Robert Edwards he knew from the start that Lisa Adams was unlikely to stop her husband after he called her into the counseling sessions. The bishop, who was also Lisa's personal physician, said she seemed pretty emotionally dead, and when her husband recounted his abuse of their daughter, the bishop also recognized the harm being done to MJ. I doubt she will ever do well, he said in his recorded interview to Homeland Security agents. Herod also told Edwards that when he called the helpline, church officials told him the state's clergy patented privilege required him to keep Adams' abuse confidential. Arizona's child sex abuse reporting law and similar laws in more than 20 states that require clergy to report child sex abuse and neglect says that clergy, physicians, nurses, or anyone caring for a child who reasonably believes a child has been abused or neglected has the legal obligation to report the information to the police or the State Department of Child Safety. But it also says the clergy who receive information about child neglect or sexual abuse during spiritual confessions may withhold that information from authorities if the clergy determine it is reasonable and necessary under church doctrine. In 2012, when Herod rotated out of his position as bishop of the Bisbee Ward, a Mormon jurisdiction similar to a Catholic parish, he told incoming Bishop Robert Kim Mousy about the abuse in the Adams household. Instead of rescuing MJ by reporting the abuse to authorities, Mousy also kept the information within the church. In a separate recorded interview with federal agents obtained by the AP, Mousy said church officials told him he should convene a confidential disciplinary hearing for Adams, after which Adams was excommunicated in 2013. Mousy and other church leaders still didn't report Adams to the police. 2 years later, in 2015, Lisa Adams gave birth to a second daughter. It took her husband just 6 weeks to start sexually assaulting her, recording the abuse and uploading the videos to the internet. The revelation that Mormon officials may have directed an effort to conceal years of abuse in the Adams household sparked a criminal investigation of the church by Cochise County Attorney Brian McIntyre and the civil lawsuit by 3 of the Adams children. Who's really responsible for Herod not disclosing? McIntyre asked in an AP interview. It is Herod, who says he followed the church lawyer's instruction not to report the abuse to authorities. Or is it the people who gave him that advice? When it comes to child sex abuse, the Mormon Church says the first responsibility of the church in abuse cases is to help those who have been abused and protect those who may be vulnerable to future abuse, according to its 2010 handbook for church leaders. The handbook also says abuse cannot be tolerated in any form. But church officials, from the bishops in the Bisbee Ward to officials in Salt Lake City, tolerated abuse in the Adams family for years. They just let it keep happening, said MJ in her AP interview. They just said, hey, let's excommunicate her father. It didn't stop. Let's have them do therapy. It didn't stop. Hey, let's forgive and forget and all this will go away. And it didn't go away. A similar dynamic played out in West Virginia, where the church leaders were accused of covering up the crimes committed by a young abuser from a prominent Mormon family, even after he'd been convicted on child sex abuse charges in Utah. The abuser, Michael Jensen, today is serving 35 to 75-year prison sentence for abusing 2 children in West Virginia. Their family, along with others, sued the church and settled out of court for an undisclosed sum. Child abuse festers and grows in secrecy, said Lynn Cadigan, a lawyer from the Adams children who filed the suit. That's why the mandatory reporting came into effect. It's the most important thing in the world to immediately report to police. The lawsuit filed by the 3 Adams children accuses the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and several members, including Bishops Herod and Mousy, of negligence in conspiring to cover up child sex abuse to avoid costly lawsuits and protect the reputation of the church, which relies on proselytizing and tithing to attract new members and raise money. In 2020, the church claimed approximately 16 million members worldwide, most of them living outside of the United States. The failure to prevent or report abuse was part of the policy of the defendants, which was to block public disclosure to avoid scandals, to avoid the disclosure of their tolerance of child sexual molestation and assault, to preserve a false appearance of propriety, and to avoid investigation and action by public authority, including law enforcement, the suit alleges. Plaintiffs are informed and believe that such actions were motivated by a desire to protect the reputation of the defendants. Very few of the scores of lawsuits against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints mention the helpline, in part because details of its operations have been closely guarded secret. The documents and the sealed court records show how it works. The helpline is certainly there to help the church keep its secrets, to cover up abuse, said Craig Vernon, an Idaho attorney who has filed several sex abuse lawsuits against the church. Vernon, a former member, routinely demands that the church require bishops to report sex abuse to police or state authorities rather than the helpline. The sealed records say calls to the helpline are answered by social workers or professional counselors who determine whether or not the information they receive is serious enough to be referred to an attorney with Curtin McConkie, a Salt Lake City firm that represents the church. A document with the heading Protocols for Abuse Helplines, which was among the sealed records obtained by the AP, laid out the questions social workers were to ask before determining whether the calls should be referred to the lawyers. Mormon officials in West Virginia case said they did not recognize the protocol and could not authenticate it, but a ranking church official in separate sex abuse lawsuit in Oregon confirmed that those answering the helpline used a written protocol to guide them. There would be a page containing various topics to discuss and handle, said Harris C. Brown, then director of the church's Welfare Services Department. This is really hard to read, but I can go through it a little bit. So let's see. At the top of this, you have the caller information, and then to the right, reporting information. Is this a high-risk case? Yes or no? Is this a reportable situation? Yes or no? Who has reported? Who will report? Legal counsel was consulted, yes or no? And if yes, the attorney name, and then follow-up date. That looks like it. And then it says, tell priesthood leader that no identifying information should be given. Use first names only. High-risk cases. If any of the following questions are answered yes, immediately transfer the call to legal counsel. See phone number below. It is important to have legal counsel involved in the discussion between priesthood leaders and abuse help line personnel in order to preserve the confidentiality of the information. So question 1 is, does your call concern child sex abuse which may have occurred on church property? Yes or no? Does your call concern child sex abuse which may have occurred at a church-sponsored activity? Yes or no? For example, church, seminary, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, etc. Does your call concern child sexual abuse by a church leader, youth leader who used their church? Yes or no? Does your call concern child sexual abuse by a church leader who used their church position, to accomplish the abuse. Nursery leader abusing children in nursery, a seminary teacher, etc. Does your call concern I can't read that word, perpetrator employed by the church? Are you aware of previous sexual abuse or tendency towards sexual abuse by the perpetrator? Does your call concern an alleged perpetrator who is currently a missionary, even if the abuse occurred prior to his or her mission? If yes, transfer this call. And then they gave a name, Bob Blattner or Richard Black. See phone numbers below. Notes, use back of the sheet as necessary. And then, so we got that. So anyway, the protocol instructs the staffing the helpline to tell callers they are to use first names only. No identifying information should be given under the heading high-risk cases. It also instructs staffers to ask a series of questions. We just went through this. The protocol advises those taking the calls to instruct a priesthood leader, which includes bishops and stake presidents, to encourage the perpetrator, the victim, or others who know of the abuse to report it. But it also says in capital letters that those taking the call should never advise the priesthood leader to report abuse. Counsel of this nature should come only from legal counsel. That counsel comes from attorneys from Curtin McConkie, which represents the church. Joseph Osmond, one of the Curtin McConkie lawyers assigned to take helpline calls, said in a sealed deposition that he's always ready to deal with sex abuse complaints. Wherever I am, the call comes to my cell phone, he said. He then acknowledged that he did not refer calls to a social worker and wouldn't know how to do so. Osmond declined to comment through church officials. Peter Schofield, a Curtin McConkie lawyer long associated with the helpline, also declined to answer questions from the AP. Mill Dunn, the attorney from the church in the Adams lawsuit, said church clergy or church attorneys have made hundreds of reports of child abuse to civil authorities in Arizona over an unspecified number of years. But he could not say how many calls to the helpline were not referred to police or child welfare officials and could not provide a referral rate. Two church practices identified in the sealed records work together to ensure the contents of all helpline calls remain confidential. First, all records of calls to the helpline are routinely destroyed. Those notes are destroyed by the end of every day, said Roger Van Komen, the church's director of family services, in an affidavit included in the sealed records. Second, church officials say that all calls referred to Curtin McConkie lawyers are covered by attorney-client privilege and remain out of the reach of prosecutors and victims' attorneys. The church has always regarded those communications between its lawyers and local leaders as attorney-client privilege, said Paul Wrighting, the director of risk management, in a sealed affidavit. Mormon leaders established the helpline in 1995, and it operated not within its Department of Family Services, but instead in its Office of Risk Management, whose role is to protect the church and members from injury and liability in an array of circumstances, including fires, explosions, hazardous chemical spills, and severe weather. The department ultimately reports to the First Presidency, the three officials at the very top of the church hierarchy, according to the records and sealed documents. Risk management also tracks all sex abuse lawsuits against the church, according to a sealed affidavit by Dwayne Liddell, a past director of the department who helped establish the helpline. He said members of the church's First Presidency knew the details of the helpline. I've been in those type of meetings where the training of ecclesiastical leaders and the establishment of a helpline has been discussed, Liddell said. When asked who attended the meetings, he answered, members of the First Presidency and the presiding bishopric, or the top leaders of the church. Before establishing the helpline in 1995, the Mormon Church simply instructed bishops to comply with local child sex abuse reporting laws. At the time, child sex abuse lawsuits were on the rise and juries were awarding victims millions of dollars. The Mormon Church is largely self-insured, leaving it especially vulnerable to costly lawsuits. There is nothing inconsistent between identifying cases that may pose litigation risks to the church and complying with reporting obligations, church lawyers said in a sealed legal filing. But one affidavit in the sealed records, which reportedly says the church condemns child sexual abuse, also suggests the church is more concerned about the spiritual well-being of perpetrators than the physical and emotional well-being of young victims, who may also be members of the faith. Disciplinary proceedings are subject to the highest confidentiality possible, said Ritting. If members had any concern that their disciplinary files could be read by a secular judge or attorneys, or to be presented to a jury as evidence in a public trial, their willingness to confess and repent and for their souls to be saved would be seriously compromised. In 2016, In 2016, police in New Zealand arrested a 47-year-old farm worker on child pornography charges and found a 9-minute video on his cell phone downloaded from the internet showing a man in his 30s raping a 10-year-old girl. A global search for the rapist and his victim was on. It started with Interpol and led to the U.S. State Department, where investigators using facial recognition technology matched the rapist with a passport card photo of a U.S. Border Patrol employee living in Bisbee, Arizona, according to a Homeland Security synopsis obtained by the AP. Agents rushed to the Naco, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Arizona border station and arrested Adams, then a lanky bearded missions support specialist with the Border Patrol. After some coaxing, Adams admitted to raping MJ and to sexually assaulting her younger sister, and to posting the video of the assaults on the internet. When agents raided his home, they seized phones and computers holding more than 4,000 photos and nearly 1,000 videos depicting child sex abuse, many featuring the Adams daughters. But the 9-minute video stood out. This video is one of the worst I've ever seen, Homeland Security agent Edwards later testified, adding that haunting dialogue between Adams and his older daughter helped make the video stand out in my mind and continue to stand out in my mind. That video represented 9 minutes and 14 seconds and 7 years of continual and unnecessary trauma for MJ and a lifetime of abuse for her tiny sister, while Bishops Herod and Mousy and church representatives in Salt Lake stood by. After Paul Adams died by suicide, Lisa Adams pleaded no contest to child sexual abuse charges and served 2.5 years in state prison. 3 of the Adams children went to live with members of Lisa's extended family in California. The other 3 were taken in by local families. MJ's little sister was only 2 when she met her adoptive mother for the first time. The toddler wrapped her arms and legs around Miranda Whitwer's head, buried her face in her neck, and refused to look up to say goodbye to members of Lisa's family. It was the craziest thing, said Whitworth, who with her husband Matthew welcomed the toddler into their family. It was like when you see a baby monkey or a baby gorilla cling to their mother and they just won't let go. Over the next few days and weeks, the Whitworths could see additional markers of the unfathomable abuse the toddler endured at the hands of her father, much of it recorded on video. She would howl in terror when any man attempted to touch her, whether it was Matthew or the family physician. The nurse was fine, but the minute the doctor walked in, she climbed onto me and started screaming bloody murder, Miranda said. The 2-year-old was also terrified of the water, which made bathing an ear-splitting ordeal. She wouldn't tolerate anything wrapped around her wrist, and at church she would run and hide behind Miranda whenever anyone greeted her by an old family nickname. When they took in the toddler, neither Miranda nor Matthew knew very much about what happened to her. But while sitting in on Lisa Adams' sentencing hearing, they learned about the repeated rapes, the videos, and the fact that the church bishops knew about the abuse of the older daughter and did nothing to stop it. The Whitworths were converts to the Mormon faith, and like many new followers of her religion, they were especially enthusiastic about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In particular, they appreciated the efforts Mormons made to help fellow church members in times of need through church organizations established to give special attention to women, teens, and children. It's all about family, Miranda said. That's one of the things we absolutely loved. But after learning about what Adams did to their new daughter and the failure of the church to stop him, the scales fell from their eyes. We decided to remove our records from the church, said Matthew Whitworth. I personally couldn't continue to provide tithing money to the church that would allow young children to be abused and not do anything to prevent it. Unlike the Whitworths, Nancy Salmonen has never been a member of the Mormon Church, but as a special needs teacher and a rape victim herself, she has a special affinity for MJ and others like her. Over the last 5 years, she has opened her home to 17 girls and boys who needed a safe place to stay. Her house's modest ranch-style structure she bought out of foreclosure. Everything's a little broken in here, and that's perfect, because so are we, she said. Salmonen said she met MJ after receiving an urgent call on Friday evening to rescue a 12-year-old from another family. She was pretty scared and pretty confused when I picked her up, Salmonen recalled. She spent a lot of time in her closet in her room when we got home, but we got to know each other and got to like each other. Like the Whitworths, Salmonen knew very little about what MJ had endured until Lisa Adams' sentencing hearing. What I heard made me want to throw up, she said. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to help her fight this fight that she didn't even know about. Safely settled in Salmonen's household, which today includes a foster girl Salmonen also plans to adopt, MJ has been transformed from a victim of unimaginable abuse to a bubbly 16-year-old who plays in the high school band and proudly dons a crisp new uniform for her job at a fast food restaurant. She had every excuse to fail and just fold into herself and run away, Salmonen said. But instead, she came back stronger than anyone I've ever known. So strong that she appears eager to play an active role in the battle she and her two siblings are waging against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I just want them to do what they're supposed to do and report it to the police, MJ said. The adoptive parents of the third Adams child who has filed suit declined to speak to the AP about the case. Like MJ, Miranda and Matthew Whitworth say they joined the lawsuit against the church on behalf of their young daughter, not in hopes of a payday, but to change church policy so that any instance of child sexual abuse is immediately reported to civil authorities. We just don't understand why they're paying all these lawyers to fight this, Matthew Whitworth said. Just change the policy. That policy is the key to the church's defense. In recent filings, asking a Superior Court judge to dismiss the case, Maldon and other lawyers for the church said the case hinges entirely on whether Arizona's child abuse reporting statute required 2 church bishops to report to authorities confidential confessions made to them by the plaintiff's father. Whatever moral or public policy arguments one can make that the church should have told authorities that Paul Adams was raping his daughters are irrelevant, the lawyers argued. Arizona's reporting statute broadly exempts confidential communications with clergy as determined by the clergyman himself. According to the church motion to dismiss the case, reasonable people can debate whether this is the best public policy choice, but that is not an issue for the jury or this court. Bishop Herod, in his recorded interview, said church officials told him he had to keep what Adams told him confidential, or he could be sued if he went to authorities. But McIntyre, the Cochise County attorney, said that's false, noting Arizona reporting law says that anyone reporting a belief that child sexual abuse occurred is immune from any civil or criminal liability. Aside from the legal arguments over whether Bishops Herod and Mousy were excused from their reporting obligations under the clergy penitent privileges, critics of the inaction by the 2 bishops and the broader church have raised ethical issues. Gerard Moretz, a seasoned child sex abuse investigator for the Pima County, Arizona Sheriff's Department and an expert witness for the Adams children, is one of them. What aspect of your religious practice are you advancing if you don't report something like this, he asked. That is the end. Let me pop back to the chat. I know it's been a long time. I know that was a long article. I apologize. Hey, Car Guy 72, good to see you. Good to see you. Anybody that has just joined us, thank you. So, one thing the article did not point out that concerns me is that this bishop, Bishop Herod, was also the family physician. He was a physician, but he was also their family physician. And a family physician is a mandated reporter. he didn't just see signs of abuse. He received a confession from Paul Adams. So how he legally got around that is beyond me. The reason I'm talking about this tonight, like I mentioned in my community post, I posted the article and I said, I want to talk about this, and I have a lot to say, and you might, like, I don't think you're going to, you might not like what I have to say. You might not expect what I'm talking about here. But I believe, like many other creators, and if they're in here and they want to, assert themselves, I'll allow them to do that. Certainly. Sorry, I gotta stop saying him. I've had other conversations with a lot of people in the YouTube community and other creators, and I do not believe that Lori and Chad are a small group of people with these beliefs and that nobody knew what was happening. I believe that a lot of people knew that what was happening. I believe a lot of people knew what they were up to. I believe a lot of people knew that it was wrong. And I believe there was probably a helpline for issues like that, and it was ignored there. And now we have Charles Vallow dead. We have Tammy Daybell dead. We have JJ Vallow dead. We have Tyler Ryan dead. I believe it goes way, way up. And the church establishes these hotlines not to help people. It's to help maintain their squeaky clean image that they so think that everybody, that's how they're perceived in the community. I will stop and say this right here. I am not, if you are LDS, I'm trying to be as respectful as I can because I was born Catholic. And there's a lot of abuse and scandal in the Catholic Church as well, and cover up. And it doesn't mean that people that are Catholics are horrible people. People like Paul Adams are horrible people. People that abuse their children are horrible people. People that work at this law firm that allow children to remain in the home unreported, with sexual abuse not reported to the authorities, and then provide counseling for the father. What about counseling for the kids? I mean, why weren't they bringing the kids in for counseling if they care so much? Why? I mean, does anybody have an answer for that? It's unbelievable to me. So this article by the AP Press, I am dying to know what the 12,000 pages of unsealed documents out of West Virginia look like. Trust me, was looking for them all morning. Like, if you had a phone call with me this morning, I was like an armadillo looking for this stuff, like a pig sniffing out truffles. I want them. I want to see them. But between this article, access to that lawsuit, 12,000 pages, I would say you've been provided with some pretty good evidence that the church uses Curtin McConkie as their lawyers, and they've established a protocol to hide crimes of their members, of their church members, in order to protect their church reputation and protect the church, who is a corporation, from liability. I think it's very disgusting that when a victim fights back at the church, the response from Curtin McConkie is it's a money grab, meaning they're just in it for money. No, I don't think so. I think they're trying to protect other people from what happened to them. This little girl had the first time that Paul Adams went to his bishop, whose last name is Herod, and Herod had reported it as a mandated reporter because he was a physician, right? Took a Hippocratic oath. He's a doctor. If he'd gone that avenue, that child would have been removed from the home that day. But he didn't, because he puts his faith. Let me turn my phone off. He turned his faith. He chose his faith above the law of the land. He chose the LDS church above the law of the land and above the safety of the child and above his Hippocratic oath and his obligation to report the abuse. Do no harm to others. Do you think that a small child is in a home with a parent that's abusive and has confessed to you and not saying anything is doing no harm? Because I don't. So we have all of this, right? We have all of this. But I have something better for you. And I have given credit in my description, but this was given to me by Jenn from True Crime Unveiled. So thank you very much. She's a good friend. She's well researched. Her channel is amazing. She is ex-LDS, and she's always very respectful when, by my standards, when she doesn't hate people that are in the LDS church. She's simply talking about some of the things wrong. The same way I could sit here and tell you that, like, I was born Catholic and there are some predatory priests and monks and nuns, and the Catholic Church did not handle it well. It doesn't mean we're bad people, because that's our religious faith. So I don't believe that, all LDS people are bad, and neither does she. All that being said, I have some documents that I'm going to share, and they are from Kurt McConkie. And give me just 1 second. Make sure that this is the right thing and that it can be. Sorry, I'm doing this a little bit different today. So choose what you want to share in window. It's not working. Give me 1 second. Let me just calm down. This makes me nervous sometimes. Okay. See if I can do. That did not work. All right, that's okay. I can do it like this. Let me stop sharing this. All right, give me 1 second here. It is fine. I can do it another way. So sorry. I love it when I go to drop something like it's cool, and I can't do it. All right, other workarounds. So I will get this to you, whether you like it or not. Here we go. I tested this before we went live, so I apologize. It's real life, things happen. Our best people with it. Have nervous breakdowns on the air. So let's see if this gets through. There we go. Sorry, my loves. No, I'm just pressing the wrong buttons. Goodness gracious. Shouldn't be that hard. Oh, there we go. Okay. Everybody see that? I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And let me see. See how that looks. Much better. Okay, I can make it just a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. I think it's important that when I'm showing something like this, you need to be able to see it. So let me fix it up so that we can do that. It's not no bueno. I think that's the best it's going to get. We'll bump it up just a little bit more. There we go. Oh, that's the way I need it. Okay, so if I ask you guys, it's at 250%. So this is an actual document from Curtin McConkie. It's up here in this corner right here. Special Investigations and Projects Green Sheet Report. So this is where they logged these reports. So here on the far left, we have case details. It says foreign country, stake. Some of this is redacted. Sorry, I'm hitting buttons. Abbreviated summary. Stake president has been accused of sexually touching a young girl at the school where he teaches. There is some indication that this may receive media attention. Investigation begins October 30th, 2012. And then it's resolved on 10/30/12, Monday. The stake president denies any inappropriate conduct. He is mystified by the allegation, and we will stay close to this one. So they're writing all this stuff down. Good grief. Okay, here we go. The second one. I won't read the left-hand column because it's just not, you know. So the second one, Elder Blank, so, you know, whatever the last name is accused of sexually abusing 8-year-old. And remember, it's just a first name because we don't take last names, because then it would be like we had all the information to report. It's reported on 10/22/2012. And on 10/31/12, they write, Blank has returned home. The disciplinary council held in the mission determined no action would be taken. The home stake president is also not inclined to take any action. Leaders are working with the victim's family. We continue to monitor this one. All right, here we go. Blank, an illegal alien missionary, was arrested and released for misdemeanor battery. He had a physical confrontation with a man. They investigated the 22nd of August, 28th of August, and 26th of August, 2012. It was resolved, you know, on the following dates. You can see them there. And then on 10/31/12, that must have been a really busy day for the church. Part of his sentence is 50 hours of community service. The mission president would like that to happen at the Deseret Industries. Deseret Industries have told the MP that they cannot do this. Any objection to our seeing if we can help work this out. Next one. Elder Blank fondled a young girl over her clothing. October 30th, 2012. Elder Blank confessed to touching the girl in the genital area over her clothing. Our only source of information is Elder Blank. The event happened over 6 months ago. He is not sure the girl knew what he was doing. Blank's companion was meeting with the girl's father privately to prepare him for the baptism interview. This meeting went along when the father disclosed that he had committed a murder. We are trying to confirm that the family was baptized, because that's their concern. We have alerted the ALC. The elder has been sent home for ecclesiastical reasons. In addition to this, he had found stealing fast offer. He was serving as the branch clerk and money. We will leave this one to the ALC. So right here, there's crimes. There's the sex abuse, right? The father murder, and they're more concerned about crimes that happen in the church. This was a non-member camp staff member. The file was recently released with the BSA 4 files, Boy Scouts of America files, okay? Resolution 103112. This may be heading to litigation for the Scouts. This matter is getting some local press attention with the release of the 4 files. Blank is upset with the way the stake president at the time handled the matter. BSA refused to give the family the name of the offender. Blank believes that the church knew who the offender was, but its current leaders have explained that leaders did not know. Media coverage has not mentioned the church. So it's okay because, we're safe. Public relations. Blank, a former Indian placement student, claims he was physically and sexually abused by the father and older brother in the home where he was placed, so like an exchange student. He has threatened a legal action against the church and given a demand letter to branch president. Reported on 9/26/2012. Notice there's a red star on this one. While this claim is clearly heard, Blank has demanded $8.3 million. We plan to tell him if he is interested in a reasonable sum in the $10,000 range to pay for some counseling, then we can talk. We have confirmed with Blank that this is the course he recommends. If he is interested, we resolve this. If he is not, we will invite him to retain a lawyer and file a claim. He claims that there are lawyers in touch with him, which we do not doubt. Concerns? This goes on and on. And again, these were given to me by Jenn from True Crime Unveiled, and she was kind enough to say, go ahead and share them on your live so you can prove these are actual records from Curtin McConkie, who is legal representation for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The LDS Church has created these helplines, hotlines, whatever you want to call them, and has propped them up to be, if you have a problem, if there's an issue, if there's abuse, if there's a crime, call us. We're going to help you through it. But it's just a way to be proactive and maintaining their reputation, avoiding lawsuits because they are a corporation, and hiding crimes of their members. That's the most important part. So, I said 15 minutes ago, there's a lot of people that believe and are putting stuff together and can really build a case. When you hear, and I used to say it too, way back when, that Lori and Chad, and so Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell, Melanie Gibb, all these people were a rogue sect of the LDS Church, unrecognized. They've gone off and done their own thing or whatever. I think it's a lot bigger than that. I think there's a lot more people involved. In fact, I know there's a lot more people involved. And I believe that the Mormon Church was fully aware of this, or the LDS Church, forgive me. The LDS Church was fully aware of this and covered it up just like this stuff. Except this time people got murdered. And I don't think it's hard to believe when you can look at documents like this that come from the law firm that represents the LDS Church and say, well, we know that these kids are abused in the home, but we're going to just like provide some counseling and we're going to let it go. Or there's an exchange student and he says he's been, fondled and he wants 8.3 million for the, abuse that he went through. Can you imagine coming to another country and staying with a family? Like it's your religion and you're supposed to be taken care of, and instead you get sexually abused and you don't know anybody. And like, that's just unfathomable to me. And they're like, you'll give him 10K for counseling. And it probably will be LDS counseling that you have to pay them back for, which is the kicker on this. I'll read another one. Elder Blank confessed to sexting with a 15-year-old girl in blank prior to his mission. The girl sent him nude photos. Investigated October 30, 2012 by Curtin McConkie. 10/31/12. The missionary department is reluctant to send this elder home to blank, where he may face prosecution for a felony. His conduct is clearly unlawful in blank, and his stake president would have a duty to report. The elder also touching with a 15-year-old girl in the mission field. Is it clear that the elder needs to go home? It is clear that the elder needs to go home. Direction? I'm not trying to be funny. I find it all so disgusting, and I can't figure out like what the issue is here. Let me make sure that this one shares properly. It's loading slowly. It has me wondering a little bit. And I'll check in with you guys in the chat once it's loading. Trickle Veil says, I'm not sure which one, but one says first trauma from Blink about Vic in the notes. Yeah, it's on the next one that you gave me that I'm trying to load right now. That thank God it finally came up. Okay, and then let's see. Good Girl says, I'm missing everything, damn it, darn kids. You're not missing. I could fill you in 2 seconds. There's an article from the AP, and the link is in my description. I encourage you to read it or go back and re-listen to this video. I read it to everyone. They are saying that the LDS Church establishes these helplines, and people call up and try to get advice on a situation. Like a bishop will be counseling somebody, and like the dad will come in and say, I sexually abused my kids. And the bishop doesn't know how to handle this. So he calls the helpline, which is monitored or sponsored by or a project of Curtin McConkie, who are the lawyers for the LDS Church. And a lot of times they're told not to report it because they don't want a lot of LDS crime. They don't want their own church members to be accused of crimes because they have this image. They also don't want to be sued because it has a financial impact on them and they're a corporation. So the connection I'm trying to make with you guys tonight is we have a lot of substantial proof now that, at least in child sexual abuse, that the church is not reporting these things. They're not. They're using an out saying that clergy have a choice whether or not to report, and they're not mandated. However, the case in the story that we talk about, the clergy person, the bishop, was a doctor, a physician who is a mandated reporter. So not only, I'm like, I got to put down my drink, take off my earrings. Not only did the bishop go on the advice of Curtin McConkie from the helpline and not report it and offer counseling to this father abusing this child, he also ignored his responsibility as a physician who took the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm, but is also a mandated reporter, ignored that. He chose his faith, the rules of his faith over the rules of the land, the rules of the United States of America, the rules and the ethics for his position, which was a physician. So that's where we are. And the point I'm trying to make tonight is if they're doing all this with child sexual abuse, is it possible that they have done it with people like Chad and Lori, Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow? We know that I wasn't even there yet, but let's just go there. Hold on, let me take a drink. Gabe Bonilla, Bonilla, he was not only a bishop in the LDS church, but he was also a friend to Charles Vallow and Lori Vallow when she was Lori Vallow. And if you guys remember when Charles Vallow was on the body cam video talking to the cops about Lori thinks she's, married to Moroni. She says she's going to kill me. She says I've gone dark. She's calling me, I have a demon inside of me. All of those things. Do you guys remember this when this was happening? Guess who was with him? Yeah, that's right. Gabe Bonilla was with him. And then when Gabe Bonilla was talked to later on, he was like, well, I overheard a phone call that Charles had with Lori, but she didn't really say she was going to kill him. I thought it was more like destroy him. So the church isn't okay on paper with Lori doing these things, talking these things, threatening. She's not living her best LDS life. Okay, let's just say that. Her bishop is aware of it. And so you got to ask, did he call some helpline? And was he told to keep it quiet? And now, we have Charles Vallow dead. We have Tammy Daybell dead. We have the kids dead. And now are they still covering it up on the inside? And, I'm going to say, yeah, I think so. And I think a lot of people knew about this. And I think this is common for the LDS church. I don't think the people are bad. I don't think the religion is bad. And please, I think the way they handle their business, because they are a business, that's right, a translated being. The way they handle their business is bad and wrong, and it needs to stop. So there you go. Let me go back up because there were a couple things that I wanted to look, but I got on my whole little thing. Sometimes I have a plan in my head about how I'm going to present things, and it just doesn't go according to plan. So that's okay. It's okay. So what am I doing with the sound? Is there something going on with the sound? I don't know. Okay, is my sound really that bad? I need somebody to tell me right now, because I didn't see that. True Crime Unveiled says, Utah law, for example, states they are mandated when it comes to a minor and when it is not the perpetrator. However, if a perpetrator confesses, they are not required. It's horrible. Don't raise your kids in Utah, folks. Okay, it was bad for a while. Okay. Okay, and Candy says, so thanks, Eric. And Candy says, sounds okay at the moment. And then Lux says it keeps cutting out. I'll tell you what, if you guys can, it's hard for me to look over, and I hate to ask this, but people that have my number, if you can text me if it starts going back, because sometimes I just can't see the chat when I'm doing something else. It comes and it goes, the robot sound. Wonderful. Okay. All right. Well, let's go with it. Sounds fine now. Somebody can shoot me a text if it's YouTube, Jen says. I don't know what to do. All right. I'll tell you what. I want to go through and are on the block. represents Holly Southern style. I just pointed it out because I was like, you certainly have these little codes in there. And I'm going to go through this next document. A lot of this, most everything tonight is linked in my description. So if you want to go back and look at it, I've got to figure out how to link this stuff. And because I know you'll want to look at it and see it for yourself. But I'll remind you that this particular one is called Designated Cases Active. It's their white sheet report, and it is from Kurt McConkie, who are the legal representation for the LDS Church. Let's get going on that, because I am almost at like an hour here, and I really try not to do really long lives because I do them for, the way I like to re-listen to them, and I can't do. I can't listen to something for 3 hours in a replay. So hold on. Okay. All right. So here we go. And I want to mention something too. I did link Kresha K. Easton's channel in the description. It is a coincidence that we're both doing this. Great minds think alike. We know each other. She was okay with me doing it too. I went a little bit later because I was doing other stuff today. So I don't want like any of that. And that's why I'm I'm always going to be transparent about where I get stuff where I can, but just so you guys know. So all that being said, it's finally, you're like, you keep saying you're going to do it and you don't do it. Let's look at this document. All right. So we have on the left the perpetrator, victim, church unit. Second column is local attorney, abbreviated summary, case events in the past 14 days, future case direction, and significant dates. So this is just their little, they call it their white sheet report. The stuff you see on here came to me redacted this way. So this one is like Alprof Realty, Far Rockaway, New York. The local attorneys. And then here's a summary. Neighbors of contaminated church property in Far Rockaway, New York, complain that CPB's cleanup efforts have now contaminated their adjoining property. Settlement authority, $900,000 approved by FP on 4/29/11. Case events in the past 14 days, in the middle of expert discovery. Significant dates. Defendant's expert reports due, completion of expert discovery, motion filing to decline, blah, blah, blah. Let's go down here. Okay, here's a good one. This one has a star, so this is going to be like more, I think, child abuse or abuse crimes, criminally prosecuted. I don't know. So the subject is former mission president. And then it says, the family of blank claimed that blank's missionary companion restrained blank on several occasions, thereafter placing duct tape on his mouth and nose. The family has retained an attorney who alleges that blank suffered from brain damage from these encounters. Blank completed his mission in November 2007. And what is the current update? Still trying to work things through with the mother. Nice. So these come through the helpline, you guys. These aren't reported, all of them. They come through the helpline. Let me see. So there's things like people trying to work something out here, like they were going to exchange temple stones for rare painting, and the church breached a contract, reneging on the deal. So they're trying to work that out. They don't want that to go anywhere either. This is Jackson versus Abercrombie. Federal litigation in Hawaii seeking to overturn Hawaii's constitutional marriage amendment as infirm in the federal constitution. Notice of appeal filed. I guess that one does. Let's see. In February 2004, an LDS initiated an affair with just a few days after terminating her case. Plaintiff claims that. Sorry, I need to pop over to the chat. Weird message on my stream. Okay, can you guys still see me? They just said that I was offline for a minute. But just to make sure that you guys are still with me. Anybody just type anything in the chat so that you can see me. I don't see anything. Okay. Let's do this. I'm not sure that I am still live. This is very frustrating. Okay. All right. Let's do this, you guys. I don't like foobar. Foobar is no good. Okay. I'm gonna call it a night. And I'm gonna try again tomorrow, and we'll get through the rest of this. And I'll do a quick recap, and we won't have to read the article. And we'll just go through the stuff again. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. Stay tuned. I'm going to figure out what this YouTube stuff is. I'm going to go look for reports. I don't know anything else to do right now. So I hope you can hear me. I'll type it in the chat just so we know. Okay, I hope you guys can see that. I'm going to put it up on the screen. Okay, I'll wrap it up. Good night, Sushi crew. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything. Tried my best. Sometimes just it works out. Good night.